So I want to have a discussion about the upcoming Star Wars saga, the next phase of Star Wars that Disney and Marvel are putting together. And this is supposed to be the supposed beginning of Project Luminous, or I think Project Luminous is the beginning of this. I don't really know. There's a lot of mysteries behind this. But essentially what they have planned, according to what Jason Ward from Making Star Wars said, is that the next set of Star Wars movies will be taking place during something called the High Republic era, which is supposed to be something that happened about 400 years before the Skywalker saga. So 400 years before the Phantom Menace, there was some kind of incident that went on in the Republic, and that's what these movies are going to cover. And supposedly the idea behind this is that the movies are going to interconnect. So they're going to have like different movies that take place in the Star Wars timeline, but not during the timeline of the original 6 movies or the 9 movies if you include the Disney sequel trilogy. So you've got Rogue One and Solo that both take place during that time. Disney's moving away from that time period, which I think, number one, is very, very smart, because one of the big criticisms of Disney has been the way they treat the legacy characters, whether it be the way they treated Han Solo in the Solo film or what happened in Force Awakens, which is Harrison Ford's call, the way they treated Mark Hamill, Luke Skywalker, whatever. People have had a problem with this. So really the best idea going forward is to just make up some new characters. Create new characters in a different time period and tell new stories. They're still Star Wars stories. There's still things that are going to look aesthetically pleasing. You know, you're going to have your ships and your battles and probably your lightsabers too. But in a different time period, I think it could be... It's a good idea. It's a good idea. Don't mess with what Lucas made. They've already messed with it enough. Trust me. Move forward from it and do something different. You take the ideas, take the world, and just do something different with it. And this is what I've been wanting for a long time. With this saga taking place, this new saga, 400 years before Phantom Menace, that means we're going to see a much younger Yoda who would still be alive during this time in the Republic, probably in the Jedi Council. But the question is, what's the council going to look like? We're going to have a whole bunch of new characters, new Jedi. Obviously, the Sith will not be villains, because if you remember, the Sith have been extinct for a millennia, according to what Ki-Adi-Mundi said in Phantom Menace. So Palpatine was the first Sith to actually make himself known to the galaxy. Prior to that, the Sith were in hiding. So the Sith won't be the villain. So this is going to give them a chance to kind of introduce new villains, either different Force users or Dark Jedi or something that, to me, can expand this whole Star Wars universe even better if they have a vision. The problem is, and the issue is, that they have not had a vision, and Kathy Kennedy, who's supposed to be in charge of all this, has not given them direction. So what I'm hoping is that with this new sort of series of movies, that we have a different person in charge, whether it be Jon Favreau, Dave Filoni. Somebody has to be sort of the centerpiece of this saga to be in the middle of the writing team and give them direction as far as where they want to go. Now, obviously, if Yoda's going to be in it, if he is, he can't die, because Yoda has to live for the other movies. But putting it 400 years in the past means we can have new characters that we get attached to, and thus, if they do die, it's going to mean something if the movies are good. Now, I do think the movies have the potential to be good. I do think that there's a chance that with new direction, this could be like a really good idea. Now, some folks are probably wondering, well, why is it called the High Republic and not the Old Republic? Because basically, the Old Republic stories, even though they're not in the same time frame as these, the Old Republic stories are stuff that many fans love. Revan, stuff that happened hundreds of years ago. I think the reason why they're calling it the High Republic is because, and first of all, I want to say that this has actually been referenced in the new Kylo Ren comic. Lore Santeca refers to something about from the High Republic era. But it was so long ago, it was hundreds of years ago. But I feel like, the reason why they're calling it High Republic and not Old Republic is because, number one, the idea of it being called Old Republic, there already is an Old Republic, and thus the Old Republic fans might end up turning on Disney for it. That's number one. Number two, you don't want there to be any confusion, because You've got the High Republic, which I guess is probably during the era when the Republic was actually on point. There was no corruption. Before Chancellor Valorum, before the Trade Federation, when things seemed to be going on point, whoever their leader was probably somebody who had, you know, he was probably a good guy, you know, had integrity. And, you know, it's one of those things where there's been rumors about how the story is going to be the expansion of the Jedi in the galaxy. And if it's going to introduce, like, holocrons and more of that kind of stuff, like lore and new Jedi, new Force abilities that we haven't seen yet, you know, to me, I think I'm going to love it. Honestly, if it's done well, if there's a good story, good characters, we're all going to love it if it's done well. They're not going to be able to recapture the magic of the original Star Wars movies, but if they can kind of try to at least get a little bit of that magic and reboot it, except in the High Republic era, and not even focus on any of the old characters, I think it could work out. Because we know that Star Wars has been successful with stuff from the older eras. Like I mentioned Old Republic, I mentioned KOTOR, Knights of the Old Republic. Like all these things kind of being incorporated into canon now, I think can work. And I think now we know Revan is definitely canon because it was talked about in the visual dictionary for Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker. So with that being said, I feel like, to be honest with y'all, I feel like the High Republic is just another name for the Old Republic. I think it's going to be the same thing. I think it's going to be the same ideas, same concepts, probably borrowed from KOTOR, but used in this New Republic or whatever, in this new High Republic story. It sounds weird to say High Republic, you know what I mean? Because that's just not a word that we're used to saying. There's Old Republic, Empire, and then New Republic. But I like the idea of it having a name change, because that, you know, it prevents confusion, and it also tells the world, okay, this is something new. You know, this is something new. So Wikipedia writes the following. They write, the High Republic era was a period of time that saw greatly expanded Jedi activity throughout the galaxy. So again, that already sounds cool. Sometime during the reigns of the Old Republic or its successor, the Galactic Republic. According to the stories among Jedi initiates, Kylos Daradi was an expelled Padawan who lived during that era. Long after the High Republic era, Jedi Master Luke Skywalker and the Galactic Explorer Lord Santeca traveled to a Jedi outpost in the Outer Rim planet Elfrona, which again, that I mentioned that earlier in the video. On the edge of the unknown regions, given its distance from the core, Tech speculated the outpost could have been built during the High Republic era. So I'm curious if they're going to go into the unknown region, if we're going to maybe see an early version of Exegol, maybe stuff like that. But to me, this is a very smart idea. But again, we're going to run into the same problems that we already had if they don't have new direction, new leadership. We can't have, because obviously there's going to be multiple movies. We cannot have these different directors that have different visions. There has to be synergy amongst the directors. There has to be connective tissue amongst the films. They have to feel like one part of a saga. You know, whether you like it or not, no matter what your opinions are of the sequel movies, they have no synergy. 7, 8, and 9 don't really fit with each other as well as they should. Last Jedi, Rian Johnson, different direction. And I have a feeling that Rian Johnson may or may not come... Well, I think there's a possibility he might direct one of these new movies, but part of me also thinks that Disney wants to separate themselves from him and not even deal with him anymore. So that could be part of it as well. Like, maybe they'll just ignore him. But I just feel like if he is involved, like, someone has to talk to him and say, dude, you need to make stories that go with our vision about what our grand plan is. You can't just give everybody full control. So if they're going to do these High Republic movies, they have to have a plan, whether it be a loose plan or a tight plan. They have to have a plan before they begin. Disney needs to learn from what happened in the sequel trilogy. Yes, you made a lot of money with these movies, but you also split the fandom. You also, in a way, created the fandom menace, even though the fans have always been critical of Star Wars since the prequel era, even since Return of the Jedi. Like, still, like, you know, you have a situation now where people are expecting synergy now. You don't even have to make every movie a knockout. But if all the movies have value, like the MCU, if all the movies have some kind of equity to where when you watch them, they mean something. And again, there's some MCU movies that I don't even like watching, right? Like the second Thor movie. Yeah, Avengers Endgame made it mean more, but I still don't like watching the movie. It's boring to me. Same thing here where you don't have to make all the movies hit, even though they should try to make all the movies hit, but you got to have some kind of connective tissue, because even though I don't like Thor: The Dark World, I appreciate its contribution into the main story, and I do appreciate the stuff they did in Avengers Endgame with Thor and his mother. You see what I'm saying? So they should do stuff like that and think about these things. There's potential here to really do some really awesome stuff on the big screen, and you've got your TV series, which are still going to be set during the 9-movie time period, from Phantom Menace to Rise of Skywalker. You're going to have stuff like The Mandalorian. You're going to have Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're going to have the Cassian Andor show, which I totally don't care about, but I'll probably watch it anyways because, I'm curious to see what they do with it. All that stuff is during the main timeline of Star Wars that we've been accustomed to for the past 42 years. But with the High Republic now, it's just a big chance to kind of use things. I personally am expecting the movies to look more like the prequels as far as like the aesthetics, as far as the Galactic Republic goes, the ships, things are going to look different. It gives them a chance now to make brand new ships, brand new characters, forget TIE fighters and X-Wings, forget that. Just make totally new ships, new weapons. Like, this could be a great thing, and you could still have that Star Wars name on it that you paid $4 billion for, to kind of let people know it's still in the galaxy far, far away. We're going to try to recapture that magic of fantasy and love and all that and adventure, but do our own thing. And to me, that could work, or it could go up in flames. The key thing is the first movie has to rock. The first one has to rock, because if it wasn't for Iron Man 1, the MCU would not be what it is. Same thing with this new High Republic era. The first movie is the most important one. I'm not sure if that's the one Kevin Feige's working on or Jon Favreau. We don't know yet. They're going to announce it sometime this month, I believe. But, yeah, it's important. Thanks for listening. Let me know what you think about the High Republic era. And, yeah, we'll see what happens. Talk to you soon.